Okay. That's a great way to start a recording, with a sneeze. All
Bless
right.
you.
Thanks. Okay, let me jump into my screen. All right. Cool. So now there's a couple different ways to go about doing an organic rig or a skinned rig here. The first way I'm going to show you is by using the same spline workflow that we did for the last object. However, we're not going to assign it the same way as we did our last object. So you can see that in here, in this scene, I simply have a cylinder. Okay, nothing special. Let's move human guy over here. So nothing special, just a cylinder. Now I divided this up. I think it has like 10 or 15 different sections. I'm not sure. And so with this particular object, I'm wanting this to be a worm or something along those lines. So obviously, if I was going to do a mechanical rig, then I would simply take this object and make it a child of one of these ellipses here. However, that's not what we want to do. We want to make this thing bend and twist in all sorts of funky ways. So instead, what we can do is I created 3 different ellipses here, or circles. And on this main object now, I'm going to want to use a modifier called the skin modifier. You can see it right here. And if you hit your drop down, you can see it. Since everything's in alphabetical order, you can see it right here. Now, this is just plain skin, not skin morph, not skin wrap, not anything else, just skin. And what that does is it basically divvies up your object's vertices into their own independent controllers. So if I just select this object right here, rather than the entire object as one moving with the controller, only the vertices that we assign here will move with the controller that we assign it to. So this is also known as mesh deformation. Now, mesh deformation is something that was a problem a while back. In fact, Unity didn't even use mesh deformation for quite a while. Geez, I think until 2014 or 15, I think they started supporting mesh deformation. There's still other platforms that still don't even support mesh deformation, but that's incredibly important. So to assign my controllers here, so I'm going to take this particular object right here, and to assign this controller, all you have to do in our skin modifier is scroll down here and to a point where you see bones. And that's what we're going to refer to these now as, because since we're moving individual vertices, when we're using soft selection like this and organic skinning, our controllers become bones. So assigning bones is pretty much as simple as clicking add. And here there will be a list of different things in your scene. Now, I only have one other thing in my scene besides this object, my cylinder, my 3 controllers here, and then the human body thing, which I just moved over. So I've already assigned circle 1, 2, and 3 to this skin modifier. Now, as soon as you assign these, you'll be able to select the controller or the bone and move this around and have the object move and warp right along with it, no matter how I actually move this. And you'll notice that these do have some limitation as far as movement, and most of the limitation is completely based on the amount of polys you have in this scene. Now, if I try to move something with a high poly amount, obviously we're going to have some performance problems there. So we want to make sure that the rigged meshes that we use, or the skinned meshes that we're using, are a reasonable poly count. We can't be using like the high poly form of Flyman. However, the retopologized version, or the LOD1, we can certainly use that. This is why, in fact, this is why we use LOD1s instead of, the LOD0s, the high, super high poly meshes, the very dense ones. So in here, you can see that no matter what, the mesh is deforming along with all my controllers. You can have as many controllers in here as you want. Now, what if I wanted to edit exactly what my controller's doing? What I can do is select the mesh itself, and then right up here, we're going to edit what's called the envelope. And the envelope is the region of control from a particular bone. So once I select edit envelopes, and I have this bottom controller selected, you can see its range of influence here, red being the most influential and blue being the least influential. Now, under edit envelopes, we have a series of controls to make everything a little bit easier for us. Now, this does get kind of technical and kind of complex. I highly encourage you to kind of play around with these settings. However, we're going to go over real quick what each one of these does. Now, first thing we're going to see here is we have vertices. And what vertices will simply do is just make your vertices visible. So if I select, you can see that now I can select everything by vertice. If I select one vertice, I still have controls over here to either grow my selection, shrink my selection, ring or loop my selection. Basically the same thing as the edit poly, the default edit poly. Now, let's see here. So the select element is pretty self-explanatory. It just means select everything. And the backface call is just so you can't see the back-facing vertices. Usually I leave these on their default right here. Now, what's really important to understand is the blend weights. And that's where we have the maximum level of control over our rig. So when I click on blend weights, you're going to see that everything disappeared. And now I can come in. Oh, wait, I didn't want that. Huh. Wait, where's my little, there used to be a little tool next to the blend weights to allow a little bit more control. Where is that? Oh, here we go. Okay, forget that. I was actually looking for the weight properties down here. So forget the blend weights for now. We'll get back into that shortly. What we are actually looking for is the weight table. And next to the weight table is this little tool, this little wrench. And when I click it, it opens your weight tool. This is going to be your best friend right here in terms of skinning. So what the weight tool does is when I select a particular vertice, so let's grab this one here, we can start to get all the data from that particular vertice and how it's actually impacting the rest of the mesh. So we still get a lot of the controls that we previously had, the shrink, grow, ring, and loop. But what we have under that is the ability to, well, there's a series of auto settings here to control exactly what this does. Now, this works on a 0 to 1 scale. So a 1 up at the high end here means that the controller you have selected, which is right here, circle 1, and so this is obviously my circle 1 right down here. It's going to tell us how much this vertice is impacted by circle 1. And we can go ahead and edit that now. So if I'm going to take this vertice and let's say I want this to only be affected by, let's see here. Well, right now it's affected by 0.36. So between our 0 value and our 1 value, this has a value of 0.3. So it doesn't have a huge influence, just under half. Now, if I say want to move this up and say I want this piece controlled way more by this circle 1 controller, I can turn this up. So let's go jump it up to 0.5. Now, you'll notice that the color changed slightly and the vertice automatically moved. That's because the more influence that this controller has over this particular vertice, the more it's going to gravitate to it. So if I take my controller here, hold on, let me just get off of this. There we go. So now if I turn off my edit envelopes and I grab this object here, you'll see that this little vertice I edited is moving different from all the rest, because I've given the control of the vertice way more to the circle 001 right under here. And so that's why that's moving like that. This works fantastic for tendons and muscles and so on, because when you're actually moving a human arm, different parts of the arm move differently depending on how thin the skin is and what kind of tendons and bones are under that skin. So you'll notice that there's a pretty big difference from the way the inside of your elbow stretches and moves from the back side of your elbow. You obviously have more skin on the back side of your elbow because, well, it's designed to bend. And this works the same type of way here. So you can see that it almost looks like now I have a tendon going here. Now, if I want to jump back into this and do some more editing, as soon as I select my object, you'll notice that the weight tool is grayed out. That's simply because the edit envelopes isn't turned on. Think of the edit envelopes much like the edit UV window. When you put a UV modifier on it, of course, you're going to click on your edit UVs, and that's when it's going to pull up your UV dialog. This is very much the same way. So we're just going to click right back on our edit envelopes, and this gets us right back to where we are. Now, let's say I want a couple tendons on this particular object. Well, I can come over here, grab that, here, grab that, and now I'm going to move both of these are obviously with circle 001 are set to 0.36. So I'm going to go ahead and up that to 0.5, and you'll see that, of course, the color changed, the vertice changed slightly. And now if I turn off my edit envelopes and I go to move my controller, you can see the difference in the influence that this controller is having on this object. So from here, you can actually turn this up. Let's say if I want to go up to 0.75, you'll notice that once again, it changed, and now it's having, this controller is having much more influence all the way up to the maximum of 0.1. Now, let's say you're not sure what you really need. Well, if you're not sure exactly what weight you need, you can come over here to the set weight. And that's what this is called right here. When you're actually adjusting the values right here, this is called the weight of the value. So if I wanted to just kind of test and see what looked good, I can bring this up in small increments of 0.005, and you could see the value changing. Now, the big difference with this is, actually, it's not really a difference, but there's something I need to point out here, is notice what's happening when I'm actually changing this value. Let's see what kind of hawk-eyed folks we got among us. What else is changing as I'm adjusting this value?
I think the height of the
values for the other controllers are changing as well.
Boom, there you go. The value of the other objects are changing automatically to mimic what we're doing. Why do you think that is?
All three values add up to 1.
There you go. All three values here add up to 1. Well, I got to correct you, though. It's a small correction on that. Only the values of influenced objects around it. So because we have object 2 right here, or controller 2 right here, and we have controller 1 here, this is split between these two values. Now, both of these values together will equate to the 1 that we need. Now, up here, you'll notice that if I select this vertice right here, what happened down here?
Circle 1 has no influence anymore.
There you go. Circle 1 has absolutely no influence on this, and therefore the values that the only values we're going to be dealing with are the values from controller 2 and controller 3. You can see controller 3 obviously has the brunt of the control here because it's at 0.959, while controller 2 has very little influence here, which is why it's blue, and therefore is at 0.041. So we're at less than a 1 value for that, or less than a 0.1 value for that. Now, if you ever want to, let's say, make this object more influenced by circle 3, see here, all we have to do is add that value to it. So I can click on circle 3 and say, well, now, or sorry, circle 1, and say, I now want you to have some value, and add some value to that, and see how it just added circle 1 to this stack, because now this has some influence. And so if I move this right down here, close my envelopes, open this, you can see that now this has some influence on it. However, if I go ahead and decide I don't want that there, then all I need to do is come in here, grab circle 1 and say, you have nothing to do with any of this. And there we go. Now, once you actually do some editing on a particular vertice, that controller will stay there. That doesn't mean it has any influence at all, so don't worry about it. Most of the time in a rig, you're going to have all of your controllers listed right here, and you should be able to just go through them one by one. If a controller isn't there, it just means it has no value. If you want the value to show up, then go ahead and simply add it. So how does this work on something else? How do we actually skin a human character? Now, one would think, okay, maybe it's something like we did with the mechanical rigging. Now, this is a good intermediary point between the mechanical rigging that we did last week and the full bone animation or bone rigging that we're moving into. This is about an intermediary point where we still have a deforming mesh right here, but we're still relying on our controllers to do the job for us. There's nothing internal to this actual object. So this works great for non-human objects. And this is always an option for any kind of rig you want to do. Now, sliding over here, just move this out of the way, and we'll center this guy. Now, a human rig is one of the more complex that you'll wind up doing. Now, this is obviously just a very basic, ambiguous human model. And hold on here. Okay, so the thing is with humans, that's something that's very commonly modeled. Something we need to do all the time, and you'll probably have to do if you're a 3D modeler, quite often. So working with human mesh deformation is something that 3ds Max has a separate workflow for. Now, we can work with the same previous, just set up your controllers and so on. But the problem here is those controllers, they aren't going to bend like a human would. It would be very, very difficult to animate all of these little controllers here to a full human rig. You can see right here, even when, like if this was my hand, trying to bend this around, we're still getting some massive deformation there, which just wouldn't work. If this was his arm and we're trying to bend his arm, there would be nothing natural about how this looks. So that's out. We can't use that. Now, of course, if you're using a cartoon, something that's, has a wider range of movement, then it's fine. But we're going to go a different route with this. Now, 3ds Max includes a default bone rig, which, let's see here, where was it? Here we go. Is this it? No, there we go. My bad. Okay, so in the creation tab, if you go down and slide all the way over here to systems, we have the option for bones, biped, and I wouldn't worry about the other rest here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a biped, and this is something that 3ds Max has by default. Now, you can create your own bones if you want to, but this biped rig is great for just getting started. So I'm going to create myself a biped. And if I scroll down right here, you'll see we have a whole lot of choices, starting with the body type. I could do a skeleton, I could do a male, female, or a classic. We're just going to do a skeleton for right now because that's pretty much the most straightforward we can do. And down here, we have a lot of options for how we actually want this bone or this rig to look. Neck links, 1. Okay, that's fine. Spine links, I think I'm going to do 3. Leg links, 3. Tail links, well, I don't have a tail, so 0. Ponytail, 0. Ponytail 2, in case you want pigtails. But we're still going to leave that as a no. Fingers, let's go with 5. Finger links, we go with 2 on this one. And toes. Now, toes is a tricky one. Because my model actually doesn't have any toes, I'm just going to leave this set to 0, and I'll show you what to do with that after. And then toe links, I think we're just going to do 2. Now, we have the option to add props to our scene, which is simply an object that's automatically rigged to the hands of the biped. But we're just going to leave that as off for right now. Now down here, triangle pelvis, which is fine. Most of these default settings will do you just fine. So now I'm going to go into my orthographic mode, and we're going to start right here at the center of this scene. And then I'm just going to drag this up and fit this within my character mesh. There we go. And as with our previous rig from last week, you'll notice that by default, it created us a pelvis bone to which everything is parented to. So now I'm just going to take that center pelvis there, and I'm just going to center it on my Y or my X. Same thing. You'll probably be you're probably noticing some similarities between what we're doing here and building our robot rig. So let me make my guy invisible here, and I'm going to turn off these edged faces so we can actually see what's up. All right. So you can see that the bone structure doesn't exactly fit our person here. And you'll also notice, peculiarly enough, that each side is a different color. We have our reds, or our blue side, and our green side. So the reason for that is because 3ds Max or Autodesk employees understand that we don't want to sit here and rig 2 of the same sides, especially if it's a symmetrical character. We don't want to actually sit there and have to do both. So the reason for the red and the blue and the green sides is that we can copy whatever we do from one side to the other. So when you're actually rigging using this biped, you only really need to focus on one side. So what we can do here is, or what we should do here, is first off, I'm going to find my center pivot here. And we are going to center this on the actual character. So both side and both from the side and height. There we go. There, that works. And now what we need to do is try to fit our bone structure into this mesh the best we can. Now remember, we only need one side to work. However, we are going to have to focus on making these spines big enough to work with our character. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lock my character, or I'm going to freeze my character so I can't grab him and move him around by mistake. So I'm going to freeze him. And now I can just get right to my bone structure here. So let's see here. So first thing we need to do is get his posture right. And I think I'm just going to start off in the middle and work my way out. First thing is the leg. Now everything moves just like it does when editing just standard geometry. So I'm going to go ahead and move his leg over to fit this. And this is why this preset character rig is very, very convenient. You'll notice that the hierarchy is already all set up. So what we essentially did right here was very quickly and simply created what we did last week with the robot. However, instead of using that as the finished geometry, we're simply using this as the rig. So all I'm going to do is just move this over and move it back. Now I can take the foot and slide this into place. Don't be afraid if it doesn't fit exactly, it doesn't have to. This is simply a reference object. You want to get it as close as you can, but you know, don't freak out about it. So there we go. Now we have the leg in place. Now, one thing I do need to point out with this is something called inverse kinematics. Now, I know, big word, what the hell am I talking about? So what an inverse kinematic is an invisible line representing the tendons of your body. So when I take this foot right here and I lift it up, what do you think should happen in a natural human body? The knee should bend, right? So if I take your foot and I shove it upwards, your body is going to bend in the way it was designed to bend. That's what inverse kinematics refers to, is the natural range of movement of the rig you're using, in which case in our body is the human body. So what an inverse kinematic does is it measures the distance from joint to joint and folds any areas in between it. So with the inverse kinematic here, we have an invisible line going from the upper leg here, or the socket, all the way down to the ankle right here. And everything in between that will bend. And so that's all we're doing right now, is because this rig has inverse kinematics by default, whenever we move the foot, these two objects will bend in a particular way. The arm is rigged the same way. Now, if you had to guess what two nodes this arm was that's using the inverse kinematic, where would you draw your invisible line? Where would the inverse kinematic line here be?
From the wrist to the shoulder.
Exactly, from the wrist to the shoulder, because this doesn't matter. If I took the elbow and tried to rig that to the shoulder, what would that do? I mean, nice and quick, absolutely nothing, because there's no joint in between that. It's a single object. So now I'm just going to go ahead and put my arm back here. Well, now I need to actually move my arm out to fit it into this, into the actual mesh itself. Now you'll notice that it doesn't really quite fit, but that is okay, because we're just going to go ahead and make it fit. Now, the spine up here is controlling everything above it. If you ever want to know exactly how the hierarchy is structured, all you need to do is hit the drop down, and you can look right into the hierarchy and see exactly how everything is controlled here. And so my spine, if you ever want to know what controls what, you can just move it. So let's see here. If I rotate my spine, you can see that the upper body is being controlled by this upper spine here. Now, what I can do is I can actually edit this just like I would geometry, where I can take this spline or this this spine piece and I can make it a little bigger. Oh, hang on a sec, actually. What are the settings for you? One sec. Yeah, here we go. Or no, where is it? Sorry, there's a setting in here to adjust this. I'm just trying to remember exactly where it's at. Because apparently it moved. That's weird. Where is it? There's usually a setting in here, which apparently has been moved in some way, because I'm not seeing it. Let's see. Let's try to grab something here. It's really weird. Oh, uh-oh. I can't select anything now all of a sudden. What just happened? Come on. Yeah, I'm locked out. Hang on one sec. I think we're crashing. Come back. Come on. Sorry about that. Seemed to have crashed, or just not moving for some reason. Sure, to turn something off by mistake. No. Yeah, that should be it. All right. Oh yeah, I got nothing working for me right now. See if I can get to anything from here. Looks like I can get in here. Nope. Wonderful. All right, I might have to restart this. Funny thing is, like, everything on the side here is working just fine. Just this is a problem. All right. See if I just make a new one. Oh. All right. Luckily, I didn't get too far anyway. Ah, okay. Here's what we needed. So yeah, unfortunately, it looks like everything just kind of crashed on me before. Okay. So anyway, I was adjusting the leg, which actually we can just move this. Okay. So with this rig, there's a couple. Oh, geez, that's not even close to the right size. Hang on one sec. It's really important when you're actually making this to make the character oh, wait, did it come back? Oh, it's back. Yay. Okay, I'll take it. Yep, I'll take it. All right, so we're back. Okay, so over here in the motion controllers or the motion tab, and if you go under biped, there's a series of controllers for this biped. Now, the first thing we want to do is set up our character in figure mode. Now, what figure mode does is it's a way to edit your character and then get back to the animations you were doing. So first thing, I'm just going to set 0 on this. And now I'm going to show you the most frustrating thing ever. If you set up a character in figure mode, it will stay that way. However, if you move a character in a different way and go back to figure mode, it will snap back to what it was. Here's the catch. Once you shut off figure mode again, your character will stay there. So bottom line here is figure mode is simply for setting up simple poses, while shutting it off is where you actually do all of your animation work. Whatever you do in figure mode will not stay, because figure mode will set you back to something different. So if I turn on figure mode, move my arm up here, turn off figure mode, move my arm, and turn figure mode back on, it snaps back to where it was. So what we want to make sure is that when we are setting up our rig, I'll go back into here, that figure mode is just set to your basic pose here, and then make sure to shut it off. Do not leave this on. You are going to be so upset if you do. See? And now, because I moved my arm back down, I turn figure mode on, it snaps up there, and then it stays. So just make sure that your figure mode is not on when you're actually setting up the rig for your character. So now I can actually do a little editing on this character itself. So let's see here. Now, the whole reason for figure mode is to actually do edits like this. So let's see here. I'm going to take the spine of this character and I'm going to make this a little shorter, a little thicker, and a little wider. So, and I'm going to do the same thing to this one. Now, your handles, as you probably just saw, are not always what they seem. So I'm going to widen this, widen that. Same thing here. Let's make this a little thicker. Now, you will not have these editing capabilities if you don't have figure mode on. This is what it's actually for. Just getting that basic general pose. There we go. Notice I'm just going through and I'm just fitting this right into my mesh. Just get it as close as you can. You can do all the fine editing later. Just like so. Also, you can move these independently. So you see how my thumb is obviously way out of whack as far as my hand itself goes. As long as the general bone of my hand right here is fitting decently, you know, within this mesh. Now, like I said, it doesn't have to be below the surface of the mesh. Don't worry about it. This bone structure is non-renderable. So you're not going to see it in your renders. So now I could just take this right here and put it right where I want the thumb. to work. There we go. And I even want that to fit a little bit better, so I can just kind of make this a bit bigger. Now, when I come in here and I shut figure, and I shut figure mode off, my character stays. Okay, so that is now his default position. When I turn figure mode back on, you notice he stays right where he is. Now, if I turn figure mode off and I say, okay, my character's good, I'm going to do some animating now, bring him up here and so on. As soon as I turn figure mode back on, pop. He's going right back to where he was. But don't forget, from here, he's not going back to that original pose. All right? Unless you have a keyframe there. Okay, so now to the, oh, wait, let's get his neck straightened up here. Actually, we'll put his head within the head here. So all I really need to do is just scale this up a little bit. Oop, grab his neck. Oh, wait, I'm trying to edit and I'm not following my own rules. What did I just do wrong? I can't hear you, Julie.
Sorry, you didn't
There we
turn
go.
figure mode on?
There you go. I did not turn figure mode on. If you ever can't edit your bones, it's because you're not in figure mode. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this. And you'll notice because the head is rigged to the neck, as soon as I make the neck bone bigger, the head's going right along with it. However, I can also take my head, because I'm in figure mode, and I can adjust it and put it in place. Just like so. Your bones don't even have to really be attached. I mean, I try to, get them as close as I can, but I mean, let's face it, there's, some pretty weird characters you may end up modeling. Okay, so now with this kind of basically staged right here, let me just make sure this is all good again. Okay. So we're just going to basically do that for right now. Now, what we need to do is make sure that the other side of the body is getting the same kind of love as this side of the body. So that's going to be in the copy paste section. And now, forgive me, it's been a little while since I did the copy paste, but so what we need to do is make ourselves a selection set. And what we're doing is we're essentially hitting Control C on the, not literally hitting Control C, just figuratively hitting Control C. So this is how we're going to identify the copied objects. I'm going to take all the objects right here on this side of the body, all my blue objects, pretty easy to identify. And we are going to create a collection. And that's going to be right down here in this little plus. So under copy paste, copy collections, and what we're essentially doing is saying, I want you to copy the blue collection. Boom. And you'll notice that this now came up right here, the copy posture. So now I can hit copy posture. It identified the left side of the body, or the blue side of the body, that I want to use. And now right over here, I can go paste posture opposite. And there we go. Our figure is rigged. Or, well, our actually not rigged, posed. So now we can go back up here. We're still in figure mode, so that's all good. And now we can go ahead and turn figure mode off because we're pretty happy with how our character is set down here. Just give me one sec, folks. I'm getting dark in here. I need to turn the light on. Okay, getting dark so early now. I start off in the light, and then halfway through the tutorial, I'm sitting in the dark and can't see my keyboard anymore. Okay, so now that I have this posed, now I can add, of course, my skin. So I'm going to have to unfreeze my mesh here, because now this is going to be, you know, the business end of my model. And I'm going to go ahead and add my skin modifier to this. Where are you? Skin. And the bones, I'm going to add. And all we simply want to do is add everything here. So I'm going to go to expand all. Let's see. And I'm going to select everything under biped 1. Here it all is, and click select. So yeah, big list in here. That's totally normal. I've seen way worse lists than this as far as rigging. And now what it actually did was gave you a best estimate, which is a great start, which is a great start for a rig. So if I take my hand now, I can move this geometry around. And you can see it gave us a relatively good skin. However, you can see right here with the bicep, we obviously have a bit of an issue. Let me turn on my edge faces. There. So we obviously have a bit of an issue right there, right? So now I'm going to set this back to its normal. And let's edit some weights. Now, when editing weights, this is where animation becomes a huge help to you, because I don't want to have to keep moving something around and then hitting Control Z and then moving it again and hitting Control Z. That's annoying and it's amateur. So what I'm instead going to do is I'm going to do movement animation, or a movement range animation. And all this really consists of is moving the arms and the legs in a way that you can see all the problems with your skin. So I'm going to turn on my auto key here, and I'm going to, of course, make sure that the figure mode is not on. So I'm going to go back into here. Motions disappeared again. Worst comes to worst, just go back in here and grab your main controller. That's what you're really looking for. That's what's going to get you to this selection here. So figure mode's off, so I'm good. I'm going to turn on my auto key now, and I'm going to take both my arms and I'm just going to move them up. And you can pretty much start to see the problems we're having here, right? I'm going to take this one. Oops, actually, you know what I forgot to do? There we go. First off, start with moving it, I don't know, like 10 frames is fine. Up. Actually, we're going to start at 0, and we're going to set our keyframes. There we go. Actually, you know what? I completely forgot. One of the things about this biped is just clicking the keyframe button doesn't do anything. It only adds keys based on movement. My apologies there. I totally forgot about that. I haven't used one of these default rigs in quite a while. So if you want to set your keyframe there, all you got to do is just jiggle that once. And there's your keyframe. And now we're going to go ahead and slide these up. And out. And so now, when I'm actually animating, all I really need to do is just hit my time slider. Now, we might as well use this animation sequence to do that with everything else as well. So I have, you know, from 0 to 10 for his arms. And then let's use from 10 to 20 for the feet. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab each foot, give a quick jiggle, so I get my keyframe there, and now I'm going to move his feet. And you can, yeah, you see all the issues with the mesh now. And so now we can take a look at all the animated pieces. You can make this as detailed or not detailed as you want. What I recommend is going through, setting everything to have some sort of movement to it. So with this here, I would set this here. This here. I mean, you could make it as chaotic as you want. Say, let's come up here and I don't know, let's take the head. Come on. There we go. And let's see. Nod. And then he's going to move from 25 to 35 this way. And let's say 35 to 45 this way. And so now, when you're actually doing your skinning, you can take a look at the movement here. So we'll get him back to his default position. Now, why is this important? Well, once we actually jump into our skin, grab the body again, because you're not going to be able to grab both the skin modifier and the bones at the same time. Just not something you can do. So you have to make sure that you can move your bones without actually needing to select them. And of course, animation is 100% the way to go with that. I don't know why there's a keyframe there. Okay, so now in my skin, edit envelopes, select the vertices tool so I can actually see it. And where is my first problem?
At the pits.
Yep, right here. It looks like he has like chicken arms going down or something like that. So we got to obviously fix that. Now, the problem here, and when we actually come down to, let's see, our weight table and our little gizmo, I'm going to select all the vertices right here. Let's see, we wanted our colors on as well. Why am I not seeing the colors? Ah, here we go. All right. So here is everything. Actually, let's just grab this pack of vertices right here. And the great thing about this is you can actually work on multiple vertices at once. So we can see that the main problem is right here in this mesh, correct? So the first thing to do is identify what are influencing these vertices right here. And we can see that the things influencing the vertices are spine 1, and spine 2. So all of our spines right here. This is because we can see the range of influence right here. If you see this outline, this controller, that's because by default, this is what the spines are controlling. So spine 1, spine 2, and then, or spine 1, sorry, spine 1 and spine 2. None of this should have any influence on this arm right now. So what we can simply do is take spine 1, say you have nothing to do with the arm. Spine 2, same thing, set my weight to 0. And then same thing with spine 3, 0. And now you'll notice that all of a sudden all my vertices popped back into place. I can also do it with these as well, because none of these need to really be influenced by the spine. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to set these right all back to 0. And you see how that starts to fix it right there? Now, actually, there's one back there that looks a little wonky. There we go. And so we're just going to set that to 0 as well. Now, a favorite button of mine is the blend tool. And what the blend tool is going to do is if I grab these two vertices right here, and we can see, of course, the 0 to 1 value is split among these 4 objects. Now, I can't get rid of the arm, and I also can't really get rid of the, what I think it's going to be spine 2. That still is going to have some influence on this arm, because I don't want this to just be a rigid mechanical edit or a movement. I want it to actually stretch between 2 points. So what we can do right here is we can simply balance it out. We can blend this out. And so with this blend button right here, if I just press blend, 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 what it'll start to do is actually balance this out. Now the problem here is we just have too much going on. We can get rid of the lower spine. We don't need that. Set that to 0. Spine 1, we can also get rid of that. And now with upper arm, we're going to give this a bit more influence with the upper arm. Now I could go through here and use some of these default values, or I can adjust the weight by hand right here. So instead I'm going to say right now, between spine 2 and upper arm, we have 0.932 rating here and only a 0.068 on the upper arm. So we need way more influence on the upper arm. So instead of just going through and using one of these values, I'm just going to click upward, and you can see it move in real time. And so now we kind of got that mesh to a point we're a little bit more comfortable with. And the same goes for right back here as well. We can see that it has way too much influence on the spine and not enough on the upper arm. Now, we don't have to go through and zero this out. I was showing you how to do that before because, well, that's what it is. So with this, when we actually start to bring the value of the upper arm up, you'll notice it drops the others as well. So I'm just going to say, yep, you're more in control now. I'm not going to give it 100% control, but because I still want it to slightly deform. There we go. And then in here, I can go ahead and do a little blending. Same all throughout here. I'm going to go ahead and do some blending here. And now we have an arm that works a little bit better. And you'll notice that right in here, we don't have like a mechanical looking arm. It's kind of stretched between the two. Now, obviously, we kind of have an issue up here because this, the shoulder is getting way too much control from the upper arm. I mean, that's not how our shoulders bend, right? I mean, if you have a shoulder that bends like this, hey, go to a doctor. Because this obviously isn't how it works. So the influence here from the upper arm is too much. This is where we want to balance it out. So what I'm actually going to do is I don't want to balance this out with spine 1 or 2. I'm just going to go ahead and bring these down a bit. And instead, I'm going to assign this to the clavicle. And you'll notice now we're starting to see more of a shoulder. And now right here, we can start to blend this out. Oop, maybe not quite that much. There we go. We'll assign this to the clavicle a little bit more. Oop, that's not really working too well, so I'm going to bring this down. With upper arm. There we go. And so we're getting a little bit better. I think right up here needs a little bit more control from the upper arm. So I'm just going to kind of bring that up a tiny bit. And same with this. And all we're really doing throughout here is balancing the weights so it looks like actual organic movement. I would even argue that this needs less. There we go. There we go. It's a little bit better. Now, of course, you have to balance this out with all the weights around here. Same thing goes for the leg. Once you actually select the leg joints and so on. In fact, all we have to do is just slide the animation around to take a look at where our issues are. We can see right here, we have some issues in here. Same with over here. Now, if we wanted to actually take all of these weights here, because we do have a symmetrical model, we can do the exact same thing. We can mirror all of our weighted vertices to the other side. So what I'm going to do here is simply select everything that I want to copy to the other side. I want these weights over here. So we're going to scroll down and select mirror mode. Now what mirror mode will do is exactly that. Everything I have selected here, you can see is mirrored on this side. And all we're going to do is click from blue to green. Oop. Which didn't really work that well. Let's see here. Oh, here we go. That's part of the problem. I was clicking blue to green bones, not blue to green verts. And obviously, because I have my vertices selected right here, I want blue to green verts. And now we have both sides are symmetrical and moving a little bit more like an arm. Now, obviously, there's some more work to be done up here because that movement still doesn't look super realistic. However, you guys kind of get the point there. And that, in a nutshell, is organic skinning and rigging. I know it seems a little imposing at first, but it's the type of thing where once you jump into it and you really start working with it, it'll seem really easy. Every tool you need to make this a simple process is there for you to use. So I encourage you to use the recording from this, go through it a couple times. Once you get it, you get it. Now, this is tedious. It is very tedious. This is an entire job on its own. So don't expect to be done with this right away. Take your time, do it right. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording.